whenever we were driving out there, you were also just really explaining the cycles of the grasses and the weather and whatnot. And I would just love to hear you kind of repeat that in some ways, because, again, a lot of consumers, me included, for most of my life, I would just look outside and you just see grass and it just looks like nature. But to you, it's obviously way different. And then paired with actual weather and the seasonality of things, that's also how you operate with moving your cattle and just the whole process of regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, so, I mean, each year we learn more, right? I'm a big advocate for like observation and absorption. So you basically look and take time to look, and then you absorb what you're seeing, right? Good or bad, right? Why are things happening? Why is stuff playing out certain ways? And then, because you have to start figuring, because being 8 years in to this regenerative movement, we're kind of, there's not too many people, or there's not enough not enough people before us that have actually that are like sharing ideas. There might be regenerative grazers or people doing it for 10, 20 years, but not actively sharing about it, where they're not necessarily practicing every day to like keep changing some of those thoughts. Because as we learn more and technology evolves with seasonality of grasses. So you have your spring flush, and that's how we're altering our grazing pattern. So everybody wants to know what style of grazing I use, right? So we've tried it all, with learning. We did the total graze, the MIG graze, the adapt, the MIG being management intensive. We've done rotational, we've done the total graze, we've moved from 12 hours to 24 to 2 hours, different life cycles. But what we found is none of that is like a lot of this stuff is prescriptive. When you rotationally graze, when you management intensive graze, when you total graze, those are all prescriptions, right? That's no different than what's coming out of a university, for one. They're prescriptions on how you should do something. We've found that nature doesn't run on prescriptions. Nature runs on it's based off of weather, right? And randomness. So we adaptively graze. So we use total graze, we use rotational graze, we use management intensive grazing, and we pair that with our seasonality forage cycles. So on what we want that paddock to do. So, in the spring, we're a cool and warm season based forage, or, we have a cool and warm season forage base, right? But over conventional farming or whatever, I don't necessarily like the word conventional farming, but ancestors before, right, from the feed store started planting fescue, right? Plowing up and planting fescue because that was supposed to be the best. So basically we turned Missouri into a cool season based state. Well, our soils, our late and seed banks say we're a mix, prairie, cool and warm season. And so what we have found with these cool and warm, typically in March, into March, you have your cool season grasses start taking off. Plants like fescue orchard grass, their growth curve is going up. And you get into May, your Timothy, and then your cool season grass starts going down, their production goes down into what they call a summer slump. And then it goes back up. Right now we're in September, we're finally getting some good rains. So our cool season production is going to go back up. But it's not going to go as high as our spring grass. And from now till like some hard freezes, our cool season will continue to grow. And then we can defer grazing and stockpile, and then we have basically how we graze now will determine how much winter feed, everything basically what we do, it determines how much winter feed we're going to be able to have. How much, because that's when we have deferred winter feed, that's where we decrease the amount of hay fed. And so what we have found is when we do like a total graze of our cool season grasses in June, we open up that canopy and allow warm season grasses to come through to fill the gap of our summer slump. And then we have green growing plants. So we basically, this is 8 years in, we've had green growing plants pretty much from the start of the growing season till now for our cows to graze.
What is total grazing?
Total grazing is like that, the idea of grazing it all to the dirt or grazing all the plant material above ground, followed by huge rests.
Is that different than mob grazing?
That I don't know. Maybe it's a similar. I mean,
there's just so many different terms, so I was just curious.
Yeah,
I wasn't
mob
sure.
or management intensive grazing. But with a total graze, right? You take every plant, make them eat every plant above ground.
And then whenever just managing all the paddocks and whatnot, kind of going back to the observations, how are you tracking all this? Because I know with agriculture, I mean, it's a lot of observations and then kind of adjusting as time goes on. How do you track around here?
We use PastureMap, and the only thing we truly use it for is just so we can follow days of rest. Because that's really all I'm looking at is rest. Because we want, in the springtime, we might get away of 20 to 30 days of rest,
In one paddock?
Yeah, before our next graze. And then coming out of summer, like right now, we might be going on 110 days of rest.